Richard, I want to go back in time to July of 2006, and I think you know where I'm going with this. Now, you weren't with Ameren, Illinois. You were with Ameren, Missouri, but in an executive role, as you just mentioned. And we had those two horrific storms that moved through. One was, I believe, on a Wednesday and a Friday, knocked out power for like 1 million people. It went on for weeks. I remember mine was out for 9 days. It was like an indoor camping trip. And I can only imagine, for those like you in an executive role with Ameren, the pressure. Life's Third Act is a podcast dedicated to helping you get the most out of your retirement. Sponsored by TuckerAllen, attorney CPA Joe Cordell features guests each week to discuss prominent topics for those over 55. Welcome to another episode of Life's Third Act. I'm Jill Enders, flying solo today. Joe Cordell has a much-deserved day off. And today we are presenting our notable senior retiree segment. The guest we're showcasing today, guess you could say he is the face of Ameren, Illinois. We've seen him countless times on the news, talking about power outages, air conditioner giveaways. He is none other than Chairman and President of Ameren, Illinois, Richard Mark. Richard, welcome to Life's Third Act, and I've interviewed you so many times over the years, and again, it's always been about power outages, air conditioner giveaways. Today, we're focusing on you and your career and your upcoming retirement, which is, in a matter of weeks?
Yes, at the end of July. July 31st will be my last official day. So I'm looking forward to it. Thank you. Glad to be here, Jill. Thanks for having me.
We're so happy to have you. So what made you decide to retire now?
It's just time. I originally, 20 years ago, I thought when I joined Ameren, I thought I would retire in 2022. And, just with the pandemic and there were some projects that I wanted to make sure I completed before I left here. And we've got those taken care of in the last 2 years. And now it's just the right time to do it. I've been working since I was 15 years old. And, when you get to 66, it's time to just, look forward to what that next step is and start planning the rest of your next season. Or
Life's
your next
Third Act.
That's right. The next act, as what you want to do and can have a little bit more control of your calendar and do the things that you want to do and that you enjoy, that you work so hard to achieve.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, you didn't start out in the energy sector. You started out in healthcare, I believe, with St. Mary's Hospital.
Well, that's not where I actually started, Jill. I don't talk about this a lot, but I actually started off as a teacher, a special education teacher.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I was a teacher right out of college. I came back from Iowa State to Collinsville. I taught special education in East St. Louis, and I was assistant football coach at Collinsville High School. So that was my very first job out of college. And I worked in that job, and then I moved to working for the city of Collinsville in the police department, working with juvenile offenders. And then I went from there to worked as assistant to the mayor of Collinsville, then to St. Clair County Intergovernmental Grants Department, and then to St. Mary's Hospital, where I spent the first 5 years as chief operating officer and the last 6 as the president and CEO.
Wow. So talk about a variety of careers. I mean, that is really impressive.
Thank you. And it was rewarding.
Yeah. Do you ever miss that, working with young people?
Well, I do. I think it's kind of reflects some of the volunteer things that I still do now. I still do, work with Jackie Joyner Kersey Center.
Yes.
In East St. Louis, the Jackie Joyner Kersey Foundation. Just because I just think young people need that help. They need adults to be there for them and provide for them and give them direction. And so that is something that I miss, and I still try to stay involved in.
Now, what made you make the leap from healthcare to the energy sector? What drew you to that?
Well, Actually, I was more drawn to it than something drew me to it.
Uh-huh.
I'd been at St. Mary's for 11 years at the time, and actually, I was at the highest position that they had in the state of Illinois. So the company that owned St. Mary's was out of Indiana, and it was a small healthcare company. They owned only about 7 hospitals, 5 in Indiana and 2 in Illinois. And I was pretty much at the top of the career there I could go to. And I had been being recruited by some other healthcare systems, and was basically looking at joining a healthcare system in Texas at the time as a senior VP and at senior VP and CEO role. And I got a call from Chuck Miller, who was the president and CEO of Ameren at the time. He was also the president of BJC Healthcare Board.
Oh, so he had that connection in healthcare.
And he calls me. He says, I heard that you're thinking about leaving the area. And I said, well, there's nowhere else to go here. I'm thinking about it. And he says, would you mind having breakfast with me? And I said, okay, well, and I didn't really know what he wanted to talk about, but I actually thought he wanted to talk about United Way fundraising, because that's how I met him on the United Way board.
Mm-hmm.
And he started talking about Ameren, and I was like, okay, it was interesting breakfast. It was at 7:00 at Cracker Barrel.
Gotta love Cracker Barrel, one of my favorites.
Yeah, at Caseyville, Illinois, of all places.
I've been to that one.
Okay.
Yes.
And so we were there, and he starts telling me about Ameren, and I'm like, okay, well, get to the point. And he says, I'm looking for someone that knows community, that, can help us with customer service. He says, all of my customer service people at the time, this is 20 years ago, were engineers, and they looked at it from more of an operations standpoint than a customer service standpoint. And he says, would you consider coming to work for me? And that was on a Wednesday morning. And I was kind of like shocked. I was like, well, I don't know. Why would I want to go from being a CEO of a hospital to a vice president in corporate America? And he says, well, are you looking for a career or a title? And I'll never forget him saying that, And he says, I can help teach you the utility business. He says, but, the things that I've seen you and your hospital do, and involved in the community and focused on customer. He says, we need that type of skill set going forward. And he said, that's going to be more and more important as this business evolves. And, so over the course of the next 2 weeks, we hammered out an agreement. And that's how I switched from healthcare to utility.
Was it challenging making that transition, learning the utility business?
It was, because the utility business is more technical, than most other businesses. So you got to learn and understand, both on the electric side, on the gas side. And Chuck was just a fantastic mentor. He had an engineer that was thinking about retiring. He was a vice president there, been there 40 years. He was going to retire. So I spent the first 6 months there with this engineer, riding around. We would look at a utility pole, and he'd tell me everything on it. Here's what this is. Here's what line this is. Here's what the neutral. Here's the primary. Here's your service line. And he just was really great at teaching me, the system. And then I just went out and tried to just, meet with people that, from the entry level people to the more technical engineering types, just to learn about the business, and just kind of immersed myself in it for about the first year and a half. And surprisingly, it started all coming together, and I understood it. But, I think the 3 fundamentals of any business is understanding the finances of, how you make money, and the financial part of the business, understanding the people part, the HR part, and then understanding the rules and regulations. And all 3 of those things are important, I think, in any industry you're in. So that's just kind of the mindset I took,
Right. Now, Richard, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Collinsville, right where my office is here today. My family, my mom's family moved to Collinsville, as far as we know, somewhere in the 1880s.
Wow. Deep roots.
That's
to
right.
the
So
Metro East.
yeah, we've been in Collinsville. My mom's family and my mom and dad been here. Like I said, their families have been here since the 1880s, and I still live about a mile from where my dad grew up. As a kid. So
Wow. Wow.
yeah,
Well, St. Louis area question. Where did you go to high school?
Collinsville High School.
I knew you were going to say that. That's kind of what I thought.
That's
Okay.
right. Yeah,
Yeah.
Collinsville High School.
Richard, what would you say has been the highlight of your career? Let's narrow it down with Ameren.
Yeah. I think becoming the CEO of Ameren, Illinois, I never, when I took this job 20 years ago, I thought that I would be, I would came in as a VP. So I figured I'd be a senior VP and then work here my 20 years and then retire. And I remember Chuck Miller telling me, he says, if you work really hard and you learn this business, he says, you can be a president, one of our presidents in 10 years. And I remember, so that day, it was June 13th, 2012. On the 12th, that evening, I got a call and said that I was selected to be the president, and they were going to announce it the next morning. I called Chuck that evening. He had retired at that point. He'd been gone a few years, and I called him at about 7 o'clock at night because I had to wait till after the market closed, the stock markets closed. And I told him, and when he answered the phone, he goes, "Why are you calling me? You didn't quit." He says, "You didn't quit or anything, did you?" Because he thought it was bad news. I said, No. I said, "I have some bad news. I have some good news." He says, "Well, what's the bad news?" I said, "Well, you told me when you hired me that if I worked really hard, I could be president in 10 years. And I said, I've been here 10 years and 6 months, and I'm not president yet." And he goes, "Well, just hang in there. Don't do anything rash. Don't quit. Just keep working hard. You'll be there." And he said, "Well, what's the good news?" I said, "Tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, they're going to announce I'm president of Ameren, Illinois." And he didn't say a word. He waited
Yanked
about
his chain, didn't you?
he waited about 10 seconds, and then he said, "I always knew you were a little slow." And then he busted out laughing and congratulated me. So, yeah. So that was probably the thing that's most memorable. And that was also one of my grandsons. He was born at 7:30 that morning. I rushed from Missouri Baptist Hospital out in the county to downtown St. Louis to my office. He was born. I got to see him. I got to, hug his dad, and
Oh,
jumped in the car and ran down to the announcement.
what a wonderful memory. Two
Yeah.
events to celebrate at the same time.
Yes. Yeah.
So did you ever think that day would come?
That I was going to be president. You mean?
Mhm.
I didn't. I really didn't. The other leaders we're all about the same age, and so I thought, well, they had more utility experience than I did. Several of them were engineers, and so being in a company that is really dominated by engineers, not being an engineer was somewhat of a disadvantage. So I didn't think they would ever, appoint a non-engineer to that role. And then, but then I ended up getting a senior VP operations role in Missouri. And I think that really helped people understand that I knew the business. I knew how our systems operated. I knew what was important to customers,
Right.
and knew how to execute. So it finally did. But it was a great moment and something that I'm extremely proud of.
Mhm. Richard, I wanna go back in time to July of 2006, and I think you know where I'm going with this. Now, you weren't with Ameren, Illinois. You were with Ameren, Missouri, but in an executive role, as you just mentioned. And we had those two horrific storms that moved
Right.
through. One was, I believe, on a Wednesday and a Friday, knocked out power for like 1 million people. It went on for weeks. I remember mine was out for 9 days. It was like an indoor camping trip. And I can only imagine, for those like you in an executive role with Ameren, the pressure you must have been dealing with that many people without power.
Yeah, that was the largest power outage in either Illinois and Missouri's history.
Right.
Yeah, I can't believe you remembered Wednesday and Friday. Those days are burned into my memory. You're exactly right.
I was a reporter and I was covering that, for weeks. And I
Yes.
remember all the events that followed, the heat set in and
That's right. That's right.
it was terrible. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
I mean, was that just probably one of the biggest challenges?
It was. It was. And, we try to approach it in a way, utilities always prepare, and Ameren has always done a great job preparing for emergencies. But no one had experienced something like that
No.
before, and so a lot of what we learned during that storm, we actually learned on the job. And so, like you mentioned, I mentioned all the different jobs I've had prior to coming to Ameren. Well, in a way, every one of those jobs played a part in giving me some experience to fall back on that helped us be successful. For example, we brought in over almost 3,000 workers from the outside.
Right. I remember that.
When you bring those people in, you have to provide food, clothing, every expense, because they're coming from, maybe hundreds of miles away. So you have to do their laundry. Well, everything was out of power. So, how do you take care of 3,000 people? And I remember we found a company that we could rent a portable laundromat from. They brought them in on trailers, and we rented portable restrooms. And, they said, okay, so how are we going to do the laundry of all these people and get it back to them and know what's theirs? And I said, well, when I played college football, you had 150 football players. We just threw our dirty clothes in a mesh bag that had our number on it. And then you'd throw all of them in the laundry at one time. And then you got that mesh bag set at your locker the next day because it had your number on it. And so we ran out and we bought a bunch of mesh bags, and we bought a bunch of all the we went to Walmart's at the time, and all the little aisle where you have the little disposable, the travel shampoos and soap.
Yeah.
We
Little
bought up all of
toothpaste,
those.
right.
There was no hospital. There was no hotels open that had electric. So we basically contacted the universities that had dormitories, because it was July and a lot of the dorms were empty. So we were able to lease those dormitories out from like St. Louis University and a couple other places. We rented their dorms to put these linemen up to stay. So a lot of it, we kind of learned lessons and improvised. And we were working 22, 23 hours a day.
Yeah.
Sleep. I actually slept in the office a few times during that period of time. So it was a learning experience. But those lessons learned under those difficult times really helped make us a better company going forward, because we were able to go back and we charted out some of those things that we did really well. And we probably are better prepared today for emergencies like that than we've ever been.
Right, because we've never experienced anything like that before. And I know what you mean about services. I lived at the time in North St. Louis County, and services weren't available for miles. To get gas, I had to go 10 miles away to find a
Right.
gas station. I had to travel several miles to get to a grocery store. And
Right.
it was really just a really difficult and challenging time for
Right.
everybody, I think. And well, how long did it take for power to fully be restored? Was it 3 weeks?
Well, actually, we had most of the people on in about 12 days. So we still had, and whenever you have a storm like that, it's hard. You look at the numbers, because you have people that come on and then they go back off.
Right.
You have some people that you can't restore because they have damage to their system that's on their house, like the meter box is off.
Yes.
So, we had most of the customers back on. 95% were on probably in 11 to 12 days.
Yeah. Mine was 9 days, but it was still, in fact, I was running out of laundry, and I'm thinking, I don't want to have to travel to a laundromat. And finally my power came back on, and it's like, yes, I can do my laundry at home.
Well, you mentioned Wednesday and Friday, because we had, the storm knocked out about 500,000 people in Missouri on that Wednesday.
Yeah.
when it rolled through, and you saw the pictures down at the stadium of the trash cans blowing all over at Busch
And it was
Stadium.
unexpected, I
It
remember.
was. That's right. It wasn't expected at all. And I remember we got about 250,000 on between Wednesday evening and Friday morning. And I'll never forget, I was standing out on the parking lot of our downtown headquarters doing an interview with one of the TV stations.
Yeah.
And I'm looking in the background over their head, and I see these clouds getting blacker and blacker. And finally, I said, "I got to go." And that the storm rolled in that morning and knocked out another 250,000. So we're back up to 500,000 in Missouri.
That's funny you said that because that Friday morning, my electricity just was restored. And I was outside talking to a neighbor, and we're looking at the sky and the wind and the trees moving. And we're like, it looks like we're going to get another bad storm. And next
Yep.
thing you know, I booked it inside, took my dog in the basement, and everything goes black. And
Yeah,
I'm like,
yeah,
not again.
yeah. That was terrible. It was
Yeah.
terrible.
Well, on a lighter note, let's talk about your retirement. What do you plan to do?
Well, the first thing I'm going to do is take a long vacation. The day after, I told my wife, I said, I don't want to wake up the next day and say, okay, now what do I do? So we have a vacation plan. We're going to, take off that next day, go to Florida for a couple weeks. We're meeting a couple other friends of ours, couples that, they've retired in the last couple of years themselves. And we're just going to meet them down in Florida and have a couple weeks of rest and relaxation. And then, come back. And I have 6 grandsons.
I was
So
going to ask you how many grandchildren? 6.
I
Okay.
have 6 grandsons. Then they keep me busy and especially in the summers with swim meets and baseball games, and so get involved with them, and just kind of get back into a little routine after that. But the first thing I'm gonna do is take a vacation.
I think you deserve it
Oh,
after all
thank
these
you,
years. Definitely. Definitely.
thank you.
Do you think you're going to miss your career with Ameren?
I think I'll miss the people. The people I work with. I got a great team in Illinois that I work with. A team that we've built over the last 10 years here. Some really great people. That I know them. I know their spouse. I know some of their children. So I'm going to miss that interaction. I don't think I'll miss the day to day, things that you have to deal with as an executive of any type of corporation. It's
Right.
people think it's a 9 to 5 job. It's really, it's usually, 7:30 to 10:30 job. It's like
Right.
you
Right.
get up in the morning, you answer emails,
You're
it's
always working.
you're always working. It's Saturdays, it's Sundays, it's whenever something comes up. So I won't miss that part, but I'll miss the people part. I just the interaction with the people, the talking, just the being a good colleague.
Right. Well, and you can still keep in touch, I'm sure.
Yeah, right,
Right.
right, right. Only difference is I'll have time to do that, and a lot of them will still be doing the things
They'll
that I'm
still be
doing. So,
working.
yeah.
Right, right. So you're going to go to Florida for a couple of weeks, get some R&R. And what about after that? Do you plan to continue with the community organizations you've been involved with for so many years?
Yeah, I'm going to continue with some community work, and then I'm also on a corporate Fortune 500 board, directors of a Fortune 500 company. So I'm going to do some board work, and maybe do some, maybe an additional board. I've been contacted now, by several companies about maybe doing some advisor work. I'm not going to do a whole lot of. I don't want a 40-hour job. I'm going to do some things that I think are interesting and things that are challenging for me, just to keep a little bit busy.
Sure.
But I'm going to, spend more time with the grandkids, some time doing the things that I want to do, that I enjoy, and just kind of enjoy what I've worked for 45 years now.
Now, do you think you'll stay in the area, or at some point you might want to go to a community, a retirement community in, say, Florida, where a lot of retirees go?
Yeah, I think I'll probably stay in this area. My wife and I, we live on some acreage just right outside Collinsville,
Hmm.
and so we've kind of built our own little place there, and it's close. All of my grandchildren live within 7 miles of us, and my
Oh,
kids they live right there. So my wife's not going to let us get too far from Collinsville for too long.
I
So
understand. I understand. So you have six grandsons, but no granddaughters.
no granddaughters, all boys.
So what's that like having six grandsons, especially when they're all together? I mean, I
I
can,
look for I look for earplugs.
I was going to say, it must be very loud.
Oh, it's loud. You have to be on your toes, because they have every type of ball there is: footballs, baseballs, soccer balls. Next minute, so you got to keep your head on a swivel because the little ones haven't learned where to throw them yet. They'll throw a ball in the kitchen just like they will out in the yard. So it's always a challenge. You got to keep an eye on them, but they're fun. They all get along together, like they're brothers, not like they're cousins.
Right.
So
What's the
that's
age
really,
range?
my oldest is 22 to 1.
22 to 1. Oh my goodness. So how many
Yeah.
children did you have?
We have 3,
Three.
and
Okay.
they're all 7 years apart. So, I have 2 sons. They're the 2 oldest, and then we have a daughter, and each of them have 2 sons.
Okay.
So I have a 22, a 20, and then I have a 10, a 7, a 3, and a 1
Wow.
grandsons. Yeah.
Well, I bet Christmas and Thanksgiving's exciting at your home.
Oh, they are.
Never a
They're
dull
loud.
moment.
That's right. So it's fun.
And, I wanted to congratulate you too. You recently were honored with the Lifetime Achievement Award by Boy Scouts of America.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
tell us, what was your reaction when you found out you were receiving that award?
Well, I was shocked actually. I mean, obviously very, humbled and thankful for getting it, but just really kind of shocked. And I was like, well, why me? And so, the funny thing is that a lot of the things that some of the people who nominated me, said were things that, I really had not thought a whole lot about.
Uh-huh.
It was like, I helped out in, some a Boy Scout group when I first was in St. Louis, trying to establish scouting in the inner city, to help
Right.
African American kids who really didn't have access to scouting get access to scouting. And to be honest with you, I kind of forgot about it. I tried to help get it started.
You are
Uh,
very humble, aren't you?
I don't know if that's, but I didn't really think of it as I didn't think of it as something special or something any different. I just thought it was something that somebody needed to do, so I did it. And so the award, they kind of reminded me of several of those type of little things, and I thought, well, so it was great that they brought back some great memories of some of those things, and I was just just shocked and just very honored and humbled to be recognized with a lifetime achievement from the Boy Scouts, because I think about, I didn't have access to a lot of scouting. I had some, but I was thinking about it and getting ready for that evening. I went back and read the Scout Oath and things, and I thought about some of those things, about being trustworthy and helping people and all of those type of things. And it didn't ring true to me that I didn't think about the Scout Oath when I thought about it. As when I reflected on it, I thought about some of the things my mom and dad told me, about being honest and being trustworthy and don't just stand there, help people,
Right.
And
Make
I
a
thought,
difference.
yeah, and I thought about the similarities of scouting, and that really, kind of gave me chills, and made me, both of my parents are deceased, and so it made me really reflect back on how important having that adult person in your life to help teach you those basic things at a very young age because it'll make a tremendous difference as you become an adult.
And so many kids, unfortunately, don't have that
Exactly.
type of adult role model.
Yes. And the interesting thing, Jill, about that is I received the award, and there was a troop from East St. Louis there at the and one of the scout officers that was over that troop I had worked with in St. Louis doing inner city scouting. And about 2 weeks later, I was at the NASCAR event down here at Worldwide Technologies Racetrack, and I was walking through with another colleague, and that scout troop was there for a flag racing thing, and they came over and said, "Hey, Mr. Mark," and they all came up and shook my hand again, and so that was kind of
Oh,
neat. It was a very, very,
that's touching.
yeah, it was. It was a very, very emotional, very neat thing to see young kids who actually recognize you. They're polite. They were just great young people.
Well, I think it goes to say that you made a positive impression on them.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Yeah. Any advice, any words of wisdom to your successor?
Well, no, I don't know. The gentleman who they picked is Lenny Singh. He's
Hmm.
from New York, and I haven't previously known Lenny, but my advice to anyone that would step into this role is, when you start something new, first of all, you have to figure out what you have. And if I had to compare this to a baseball analogy, I'd say Ameren, Illinois is really in first place right now. And so, to learn how to maybe understand, the people you have, understand the differences in Illinois. It's going to be different whether you're coming from Missouri or you're coming from New York, or if you're coming from Kansas. Illinois is a different place, and you have to understand, the culture, the communities, understand the people there. I think you have to embrace the expertise of the team that we've put together here.
Right.
Ameren, Illinois was the number one utility in the Midwest for customer service with JD Power last year.
Right. I
And
remember that.
we take a lot of pride in that, and so that's something that I think it's important that the successor upholds, and and comes in and really tries to, how do you build on that, and how do you sustain it? And if you're a baseball, if you have a team that's in first place, the goal for any new manager is to make sure they stay there.
Okay. Well, Richard, we're about out of time, but I want to thank you again for joining us today. And again, I wish you all the best in this
Thank you.
next chapter of your life in retirement. And we'll have to circle back in a few, maybe 6 months to see how things
Okay.
are going.
Well, thank you. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk with you today. And again, thanks for the opportunity, and I'm looking forward to it. So,
Okay.
and I hope to see you soon.
Thank you. We wish you all the best.
Thank you.
Well, that's been another episode of Life's Third Act. Until next time, take care. You've been listening to Life's Third Act, a podcast for thriving in retirement, sponsored by TuckerAllen, your estate and elder law advisors. Each week, we discuss topics and answer questions to help you better plan for your future. For more information, visit TuckerAllen.com. Subscribe and listen again next week for another edition of Life's Third Act. The choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely on advertisements.